thinking about tomorrow. Don't stop. Yesterday's gone. Yesterday's gone. Good afternoon. With a subject like Brexit and innovation and standards, I thought I'd just get the mood up a bit. And it was quite some years ago, it was in the 70s that Fleetwood Mac were popular. They had also another song which was a complete instrumental, which was about albatross, and it goes on and on and on. So certainly no one want it to be an albatross around about our neck. One of the things, and I was briefly talking to Lyndon, when we're in the sort of era we're in, you can easily talk yourself into a very great black hole. And the way Lyndon was talking about how to address the EU, the UK, and everybody else we're trading with, it is very forceful and positive and going forward on that basis. So don't stop thinking about that, because tomorrow is a very important thing. So I won't be talking about Brexit. What I will be talking about is the growing of the economy. As an economist, I can't help it. It is what exercises me all the time. And maybe I'm sort of misled as a regulator and I should be doing something else. But growing the economy is of vital importance. And from time to time, I said, people, you cannot shrink to greatness. You may try, but it doesn't work. So make sure that we, as a bailiwick, are growing. I will also talk about the role of the Commission. We're quite busy, and William explained a lot about what it is we are up to. And then I will talk, one of my, you could call it hobby horses, is the governance of companies. I have this, and I tried this last night. I said to Victoria, we as regulators ought to try and make ourselves redundant. That's my long-term aim. I'm probably going to fail in my aim, but it is the directors and the non-exec directors in particular who have a very important role to play. If they do their task to the best of their ability, then the regulator will have less of a reason to interfere from time to time. This summer, I was on holiday in Finland, which was the first time in Finland. And sort of, I don't know what you think about Finland, but with these woods and lakes and things. And I thought it was cold. I made a major mistake. It was very warm. It was about 23, 24 degrees and most pleasant. Another mistake I made, I hadn't gone to the barber yet before going on holiday. So in Helsinki, I went to the barber. And so what do you talk to or about with a Finnish barber? So I tried Nokia, and I got an instant explosive reaction from the barber. So that obviously worked. So, and the barber was really, really angry about Nokia. He said, management just lazy sods, had a whole litany. And I said, well, the sort of thing that happened to Nokia happens a lot, where people, companies, businesses that are very successful find it very difficult that whatever they do, it will go away at some point in time. And my life in the insurance industry, you have the underwriting cycle. And when you need a top, people find it very difficult to think that it will go down, but it will. And when they near the bottom, they find it very difficult that it will go up, but it will. And so there is this whole attitude in business, in the world, in humans, and they find it very, very difficult. I did some research then when I came back from Finland about Nokia, and the top value of Nokia in the stock market was about 75 billion US dollars. It's about 7 billion as and when it sort of ended. So I have some idea. I was also looking at articles about Nokia. And about 10, 11 years ago, there were articles in the electronics press about who's going to be the winner. And who do you think was going to be the winner in the mobile telephone war? Nokia, of course. Who was the other one? Motorola. Where is Motorola now? So that's my number one point. When you try to predict or pick winners, that is a very difficult thing to do. I would argue it is impossible to do in our fast-moving world. Part of my past is this thing here. You will remember that the QE2 was built on the Clyde in Glasgow. That was probably also roughly the last thing they ever did. And then the whole shipbuilding moved away. And whatever they did and tried, it moved away. It went to Japan. And then it moved away from Japan, and it moved to Korea. But then the high value came back to Europe. It was very interesting. So the cruise ships are built either in Germany or Italy, Fincantieri, and in France. But it never came back to the UK. So it can be reversed, but something else needs to happen for that to occur. About 20 years ago, I started to fly the world once a quarter and visiting my empire at the time. And so you lie on a plane and you want to do something else. And I bought myself mini discs. Do you remember them? Do you know how many years they lasted before they were overtaken? 2, 3 years, that was it. And so all this investment in the hardware and the software and everything, after 3 years, wipeouts. And so what do you then guess for? And then they had the MP3, which lasted maybe another 2 years. And then the iPlayer came in. And the iPlayer was then consolidated into telephones and all that sort of thing. It's happening with newspapers. Yesterday, I was commuting to London, and there was just one person sitting there with a newspaper. Well, not that long ago, the whole train would be full with people trying to manipulate the newspapers and how they get there. By now, products and services are perishable goods. It is like lettuce. If you don't sell it on the day, you have to throw it away a day later. And that is my concept. And that is also true for financial services. So being very, very alert and making sure you do that well. So Nokia actually came to the fore. I think it was Gorbachev who came to a conference in Helsinki. And can you remember those bricks you used to have, masquerading as phones? And he took a call in Helsinki from Moscow on a Nokia phone, and that was the start of the whole Nokia development. And 10 years later, it was gone. They failed to go from analog to digital, and they just missed it. That happens a lot. Some people do excellent analysis. There was, for those of you who are old enough like me, there was a family called the Hunt family. It was Lamar Hunt and something else Hunt. And so there were 3 brothers. They were billionaires. And they did their research. They did excellent research. They had concluded that photographs were going to be the thing in the future. And is it? Yep, absolutely true. Then they concluded, in order to do that, you need to corner the silver market, because you needed silver to develop photographs. So they bought up 50% of the silver market in the world in order to make a killing out of it. There was just one thing that happened. We moved to digital. And so even when you do your analysis well, that does not mean that you have arrived in the right place. One of my other ideas of having been in this world now for a long time is that I have this concept of running up the down escalator. It is that as an individual and as a company, you need to be fit. If you're on the up escalator and you stand still, you go back to the bottom. If you only go at the pace of the escalator, you get nowhere. You need to go a bit faster. And I looked up the net, as now it's quite easy to do. And I found this. It happened in Poland about a year ago. What you can't see is there's a very long queue for people who go up the normal escalator, but they can't quite get there. And these gentlemen are trying to get up the down escalator. You have to be young and fit in order to do that. And that is my point. And in business, it is exactly, to me, it is exactly the same thing. What to do? People call us offshore financial centers, which we sort of, no, we international financial centers. I was in a meeting when, was it Jimmy Carr had done something on another island, and we understand that very well. In the room, I was the only one who understood the distinction between the one island and the other island. And so when they said, oh, it's Jersey, you know, phew. But I was the only one who said, phew. They said, no, Channel Islands. And so we can see the difference, but it's just us that sees the difference. The world does not. So from time to time, we get a reputational challenge, which is very little to do with us. And we have it very recently with the Paradise Papers, where there was still anybody, maybe you can point it out to me, there was no illegal activity going on in all of that, still not. And there's just absolute noise about it. But no, this is not illegal. This is proper business being conducted. But that is the world we live in. And that is, again, my view of the running up the down escalator. In the meantime, when we're running up, somebody is increasing the speed whilst we do it. And we need to make sure that we do that well. So what is there to do for us? And that is developing new markets. And we have ILS, and we have other things. And William mentioned quite a couple of initiatives we have implemented during the year, so to enable you to do business and to make money in the process. When you talk to consultants, I was one once, they talk about first mover advantage. And they say, oh, first mover advantage. Name me one. It tends to be the second one. Fast follower, just monitoring what is going on. They say, okay, they made that mistake. I'm not going to make that mistake. So it is scanning the world, almost like a radar, just scanning the world and making sure you understand what is going on in the world and that you react and have your own products to the market. Who knows who invented the PC? Was it Japanese? No, it was not American. No. Good try, good try. Anybody? Name an unlikely country. Italy. Olivetti developed the PC. Okay? Right. Again, first mover advantage. Ha! It has absolutely nothing to do with it. And there were all the others. And then, interestingly, you mentioned IBM. Somebody mentioned IBM. IBM then gave away the operating system to Microsoft because they thought it wasn't important. And so even successful companies who have a good insight in the market make big mistakes. And they created, by giving away the operating systems to them. So being a rapid follower is absolutely essential in how we do things. And so activity, so having research, but the research is not fundamental research. The research is what are others doing and what can we be doing in that particular field. A couple of years ago, and one of the previous ministers was very keen on it, it was getting the connectivity, the communication infrastructure here on the island absolutely up to speed. To me, that I call it an enabler. It is something that we need to do and we need to have in order to be in the game. It is not something that puts your head. It just simply allows you to play. And so there are quite a few things that the states, ministers, the commission, the GIBA industry needs to do jointly in order to make that happen. I am personally very keen on the number 2 point here. So a genuine competitive advantage is the rule of law. In my past, I was somebody who would decide, we go to this country, we go to that country, no, we close that one down. And more often than not, that was based upon the rule of law. If there is a conflict in that place, can I rely on getting proper treatment from the courts in that place? And if that wasn't the case, I was out. And I think, and more than think, I'm convinced that Guernsey is such a place, a proper rule of law which is capable of being, is not exported, but is being used as a positive point to sell the bailiwick. And of course, both all the previous speakers talked about the stable and safe environment. You should not underestimate it, that you actually just can walk across the street and it is all, as an alien, walk across the street, and that is fine. So that is a very important part of the competitive advantage. And then we have this a bit like antique shops, sitting together. It creates an environment where people and businesses reinforce themselves. So a cluster of special financial institutions and the lawyers and the accountants and the actuaries who help to make that very powerful indeed. And do not underestimate the time zone, just being able to talk sort of in between. In my previous existence, I had a watch that showed me Hong Kong time, here time, and then US time. And here you straddle, time-wise, you can just straddle Asia, here, and then the US. Asia can't do that. US can't do that. We have a good place, and that's just a thing that happened to us and is available to us to do so. So the way we go forward as a bailiwick and inventing new products, or quickly following others who have invented other products, that would be my way forward. Going from innovation to the Commission. The Commission and international standards. We have three broad objectives. One is to protect the policyholders and investors, enabling fair competition, but in a macro sense, even more so, is being recognized as a good place to do business. And I think that's where the rule of law comes back in. You say, okay, no, when you have that on Guernsey, that works very well. Those are the 3 points that I think not many others have, and take us forward. Lyndon was talking about, and William was talking about, we are takers of whatever happens in the world. I'm not as enthusiastic as Victoria was about the Financial Stability Board. I think they're slightly over the top in what they're trying to do, and that the things they work for large countries don't quite work so well for jurisdictions like ours. But clearly, something had to be done after the debacle from 2007 and 2008. You have the Financial Stability Board. The SEC, the Americans, tend to be extraterritorial about things they want. I have a very small grandson, and we taught one of the first words we taught him, just for fun, was FATCA. And, and this poor little one sitting in his high chair, come on, Toby, FATCA. and you will all remember that just swamped us for a while. So that came out of the US, and the EU, of course, has it as well. We do not slavishly follow everything, but our optionality, as it is called, is pretty limited. And then, of course, we had the setback of all the good work we've done last year. And then the EU said, no, we're not going to do that yet, AIFMD. They usually come with a list of things to do. And the last time they were here was 10 years ago or so. And I think only last week we've done the last thing they asked for, and that is new fees, sorry, not fees as well. Fines have been brought into legislation. That was Monday a week ago. So if you have any ideas about doing wrongful things, just forget it. It's very expensive now. So the Commission, in its munificence, has decided that old things will be judged against the old fines, but any new thing, so as and when we find you out from now on, is going to be expensive. So I would not say don't get found out, don't do it. William, from time to time, says very wise words. And the Commission have decided to put a lot of effort into traveling. And so Victoria was talking about IAIS and about Kuala Lumpur. So the Commission has been to IAIS meeting in Kuala Lumpur to make sure that our voice is being heard. And I find this a particularly powerful thing for the Commission. If not at the table, we are very likely to be on the menu, William the Younger. And I'll explain later why I added that. So we do a lot of traveling. We go to all sorts of places, and we want to be heard, and we also volunteer for things. Chairing commissions, committees, and things, and making sure that I learned very early on in my career, if you draft the thing, you have a very powerful position because others are not so keen to draft it. So if you're there and say, well, no, I take the minutes, I will still do it today. I will take them. If nobody wants to take them, I'll take the minutes because it will be in there what I think is important and what I want to achieve. We aim as a Commission to box above our weight. And the members, and I'm very grateful for my executive to do such a exhausting, but they go to nice places, but still it is quite a lot to be done. Last year, and William gave an expose about this, quite a few things this year and last year about new laws, new regulations to protect policyholders and to protect investors. In a way, for a Commission, it is slightly unusual to draft your own regulation. That is not normally the case, but we are a smaller jurisdiction and we need to make sure that those things in place. And Andy Sloan, who will speak later, was very instrumental in achieving that. We do not have a role, and we cannot have by law a role of propagating just propaganda for Guernsey. But I can't help myself. I quite liked the place and I wanted to do well. And so the Commission, and later we'll show you a piece about Hong Kong and the activities we have in Hong Kong. It is there to, bit the same like if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We need to be there. There is, despite all the electronics and the physically being there is an important part, and that is what we try and do. One of the it was only, I think, 2 weeks ago, there was something had gone wrong at a theatre in London. And I heard, this was in Today in the morning program on the Radio 4, and somebody said, there is no regulator for theatres. And so there was this whole program followed on. That was a very bad thing, not having regulators for theatres. And I thought, hey, the mood about regulators has changed. In that regulation by now, if you're not regulated, it's a sort of kite mark that you're regulated and therefore we're in a better position. And now being seen as well regulated, I would argue, and quite a few people would argue, that is now something as a competitive advantage. It is very clear from us that, well, not everything goes well from all the time, but it needs to be, and I've said it right from the beginning. It was 5 years ago when I became chairman, and the audit. I asked the audit firms, and they were gracious enough to agree to once a quarter, they organized dinner for me so that people could come and talk to me. And that is still the case. Like, if there is something that you do not like, come and talk to us. We listen. We have all the directors do breakfast meetings and making sure that we understand what it is you want, you need. We may disagree at the end of it, but we will listen to you and make that very important. Which brings me to enforcement. William has already spoken about enforcement. I came to the UK 35 years ago, and so I did something unusual. I read up on the highway code. because I wanted to understand how the rules in driving around in the UK, in London in particular, worked. And I learned there was this thing about one yellow line, no parking, 2 yellow lines, no stopping. And I thought, okay, understand that. Quickly I learned that was not the meaning of the lines at all. There's 1 yellow line means parking space, 2 yellow lines, more parking space. Without enforcement, rules make no sense. Yesterday morning, going to the city to one of my other activities, on Cornhill, you probably were all familiar with Cornhill, it now has double red lines. We really, really, really mean it. And still, nobody's enforcing it, so there are car after car is parked. So when you have rules, if you don't have the enforcement, there is no point having rules. And so enforcement is an essential part of what we do. Also, 5 years ago, I see one ex-colleague here who was with me at the time. We still had commissioners sitting in judgment over misdemeanors. And there was one particular case where my colleague, myself, and another ex-commissioner, we found against the commission. The reaction from the commissioner was quite amazing at the time. But what we also concluded, that is because the island and the island environment, getting commissioners who are not conflicted and can properly address what is a part of our enforcement, we decided to embark on getting outsiders, QCs, helping us to do so. Officers, part-time officers of the Commission, and they do this. A second part was the professionalization of the enforcement itself. It is writing good notes, timely, and everything else. And of course, and that is as and when William came in, that we started that up, which is about 4 years ago. And the whole enforcement and judgment process was professionalized. The biggest problem remained that we have often conflicts of interest. And this has now been running with the SDMs for 2.5 years, William, 2.5 years, as senior decision makers, and it worked well. It has now been tested in the courts, in the Royal Court over here, and it works well. Not everybody is happy, but I don't expect people to be happy on that particular subject. But there is also a new development, which is not so good, that people are playing the man rather than the ball. And my colleagues and I are just deeply unhappy about that. As I said, I've always, my door is open. If you try to phone me, I answer the phone. I hide behind nobody else. And so if there is something, it's material, and come to me. Try and hit me rather than any of my people. And I'm very serious about it. I found it, when I learned about it, I found it very unpleasant and also deeply unprofessional. That gets me to, I never got. So we have complaint procedures in place, and you can use them and come to us. But I don't want to go on about it. I think you understand very well what I mean. Some people yesterday, they said, so what is the music you're going to do this year? And I said, no, I'm not going to tell you. You have to come and listen in order to find out. You may remember that last year I used Simon and Garfunkel. I come to talk to you again. And it's the same subject I keep repeating. And those of you who paid attention at your history lessons may recognize it. Lynn is already nodding off. Anybody for this? This is why I had earlier William the Younger, because this was written by Cato the Elder. And Cato the Elder was a senator in Rome who, whatever subject he discussed would always end with this, which means that I am of the opinion that Carthage needs to be destroyed. Always he would come back to that. And so that is, well, at least in some circles, quite famous. I have the same thing about another thing. I have mentioned to you quite a number of times that the roles of NEDs. So if I have, as one of my objectives or my goals, to make regulators redundant, this is the way to do it. It is the NEDs, the directors on boards who need to perform and make the oversight, first of all, for regulators very easy, and if they do it very well, they make it redundant. I'm probably going to fail in my desire and my wish to do so, but making sure that the role of the NEDs is being played. Of all the mishaps over the last couple of years, or the last 10 years or so, I personally know 3 directors on the ex-RBS board and 2 directors on the Northern Rock board, who I would absolutely rate as individuals. Critical, on the ball, reading board papers and all that. And it still happens. And so the answer, how come? So there are very diligent individuals and it still happens. And that has to do with board processes, particularly, I would say, the relation between the chairman and the chief exec, and then how the ownership works out. But you, those of you who are NEDs or independent directors, I'll keep coming back to this, a bit like Cato the Elder, time and time again, because to me, that is the essence of what you need to do. We have, as regulator or commissioners, absolutely no desire to sit on your chair. You are the ones running the business. We have a look, we observe. And so that means that you, as non-exec directors and other directors, it's the challenging that you need to put in place. If you don't challenge, we will challenge. It's very simple and very straightforward. I'd rather not, but that goes back to you. So be challenged by us or do the challenging yourself. So the big points I would like to leave with you this afternoon is, first of all, being a rapid follower. It's a more likely strategy that works. If you try to invent things, most of that fall on very fallow ground and don't work at all. And probably you spend a fortune in doing it, and then you see money just disappear as a result. William mentioned it, Lyndon mentioned it, and Victoria to a certain extent, is the combination. We are strongest in working together. It's the states, the commission and industry. And last night I used GIBA. I said, well, and they said, no, it's the industry. Well, GIBA as a shortcut for all of you. And it cannot be done on our own. We can't do it, the states can't do it, you can't do it on your own. It's the combination of two, so that the working together. And I used, for a number of years, I used that as my, my tune, but that's not going to happen this year. So, rapid following, working together, and then the last one, your role as non-exec director is absolutely paramount in getting this right. And by doing that, we have the confidence that we can be and keep a very prosperous bailiwick and don't shrink to greatness. Thank you very much.